The story opens with four valiant adventurers standing firm before the ominous castle of the Demon King. Their voices reportedly carry a slight tremor, though it is overwhelmed by their resolve to defeat the tyrant who has terrorized humanity for years. The party's leader, sensing the tension, delivers a brief yet stirring speech that successfully boosts morale and convinces everyone that charging headfirst into certain danger is, in fact, a fantastic idea. Upon entering the palace, the heroes are soon stopped by a boyish-looking demon who calmly announces that the only way forward is through him. One of the party members immediately launches a fire spell, clearly hoping for a quick victory. Unfortunately, the demon blocks it reflexively, as if swatting away an annoying mosquito. Another hero rushes in for close combat, sword in hand, but even that proves completely ineffective. Finally, the leader unleashes his prized weapon, Excalibur, only to discover that it does not even begin to match the demon's overwhelming power. The battle ends swiftly, with the hero's party collapsing unconscious, while the demon remains entirely unbothered and, frankly, not even winded. As they lie defeated, the demon's attention is drawn to Cecilia for the first time. The sight of her reportedly raises his eyebrows and delivers an unexpected ache to his heart. Before he can process these unfamiliar emotions, his allies arrive and ask whether the human should be executed. The demon refuses and orders the heroes to be discarded near a nearby village instead. As they are carried away, he silently bids Cecilia farewell, despite never having spoken a word to her. A month later, the demon, now revealed to be named Yoki, is summoned before the Demon King. He reports that the heroes' party continues attempting to infiltrate the castle and continues failing just as consistently. The Demon King questions why the heroes are still alive, given how thoroughly they've been defeated. Yoki responds that murdering such insignificant humans is not worth his time, a reply that aligns perfectly with demonic arrogance while conveniently concealing his lingering feelings for Cecilia. The Demon King, however, finds this explanation unacceptable and orders Yoki to execute the heroes the next time they appear. Yoki leaves the chamber pale and conflicted, though he hides it well enough to survive the walkout. That night, Yoki reportedly sleeps poorly, his thoughts looping endlessly like a cursed morning alarm. Before long, the heroes return once again. Yoki fights as he always does, effortlessly and without concern, while the heroes exhaust themselves in a series of increasingly desperate attacks. Eventually, Yoki makes an offer that shocks everyone. He will allow them to pass if Cecilia agrees to stay with him. The proposal stuns the entire party. One member even suggests that it might not be the worst deal, though the leader firmly refuses to sacrifice a teammate so shamelessly. In the end, Cecilia herself agrees, reasoning that Yoki has already spared them multiple times. Trusting this logic, the remaining heroes leave, abandoning Cecilia alone with the demon. Unsure what to do and determined not to go quietly, Cecilia launches an attack at Yoki. As expected, it accomplishes absolutely nothing. Yoki then gathers all his strength to release a powerful attack of his own, one that shocks Cecilia, but leaves Yoki completely paralyzed. In that vulnerable moment, he confesses his feelings. Cecilia responds by casting a spell of rejection, effectively draining him of both ambition and dignity. After mobilizing him, Cecilia grows curious and asks how a demon could possess a heart at all, and why someone so gentle does not use his power for good. Yoki explains that he was once human in another world, and was reborn as a demon, forced to obey the Demon King. Killing the Demon King would only result in Yoki becoming the next one, trapping him in the same cycle. Cecilia begins to understand his predicament, and sympathy blossoms into something warmer. She offers him her hand and invites him to join her in the human world, insisting that there is good within him. The following day, the heroes return to the Kingdom of Clarius in triumph, celebrated for defeating the Demon King and ending the war. The king declares a 3-day holiday, ensuring that future generations will also enjoy mandatory festivities. Meanwhile, Yoki arrives in the same town, carefully hiding his horns and wings. Starting a new life as a human, he immediately faces the pressing concern of funding said life. He registers as an adventurer at the lowest rank and, driven by ambition and affection for Cecilia, climbs to D rank within a week, quickly becoming the talk of the town. This news eventually reaches Cecilia, who finds Yoki and brings him to her mansion. She explains that while the Demon King is gone, humanity has become its own greatest threat, as kingdoms now scramble for power. The heroes' leader has already received multiple marriage proposals, all thinly veiled political maneuvers. Cecilia's main concern, however, is Yoki. She fears his powers could be exploited and asks him to leave the Adventurers Guild. Yoki reassures her that he has no intention of using his strength for evil, easing her worries. Their conversation is abruptly interrupted when Cecilia's mother enters and immediately begins discussing marriage proposals. This does not sit well with Yoki, whose disappointment is instantly noticed. Her mother, perceptive and direct, asks him outright whether he intends to marry Cecilia. Yoki admits that he has already been rejected and insists that Cecilia's feelings matter more than his own. This answer impresses her mother, who values character as much as success. The episode concludes with Yoki asking for permission to call Cecilia by her name, a small step forward, but a significant one for a former demon experiencing love for the first time. The episode opens with Yoki locked in what is technically a life-or-death battle, though the danger is mostly theoretical. His opponents consist of an extremely aggressive monster resembling an oversized rooster, deadly in reputation, ridiculous appearance, and its equally hostile partner, a massive snake. Despite the ominous pairing, Yoki handles the situation with insulting ease. He reportedly dodges their attacks with his hands tied behind his back and a broad smile on his face, as though this were little more than a casual weekend workout. In his mind, this adventure request is still far less demanding than his former job as a royal servant to the Demon Lord. Before long, he defeats both monsters effortlessly, thus completing the quest. He recalls how the Adventurers Guild had warned him that the task would take weeks and test his limits. Instead, Yoki locates the monsters and eliminates them in less than a single day, quietly wondering whether the guild enjoys exaggeration as a hobby. His moment of satisfaction is short-lived. Completely off guard, he is suddenly attacked by 3 demons. His instincts nullify their assault almost instantly, and upon closer inspection, recognition sets in. These attackers turn out to be members of his former team from the Demon King's dungeon. Duke the Dullahan, Happiness the Harpy, and Sheik the Pixie. They explain that they've been desperately searching for him ever since his mysterious disappearance following the Demon King's defeat. One might expect Yoki to fabricate a convenient excuse about his current life among humans. Instead, he chooses honesty. He openly explains that he had confessed his love to a member of the hero's party, only to be rejected. Rather than retreating into bitterness, he decided to live as a human, earn a living, and someday confess his feelings to Cecilia again, hoping she might change her heart. He encourages his former teammates to do the same, to live freely, unbound by their identities as demons. With no Demon King left to command them, he insists they are finally free to choose their own paths without shame or pressure. Yoki expects them to part ways. To his surprise, the opposite happens. His former teammates reveal that they have become deeply dependent on him and are now determined to follow him, specifically to meet the woman who rejected their overwhelmingly powerful captain. Yoki is stunned and attempts to dissuade them, pointing out that blending in with humans while in disguise will be extremely difficult. This argument fails immediately. They counter that if Yoki can disguise himself, then so can they. Outvoted and outmatched, Yoki reluctantly agrees. In an attempt to make them less conspicuous, he cuts off the wings of Happiness and Sheik and tells Duke to keep his head firmly attached to his neck instead of carrying it around like a decorative accessory. The process of wing removal is described as anything but pleasant. When they finally meet Cecilia, Happiness immediately leaps into her lap, like an injured puppy seeking comfort. Cecilia, far from amused, becomes furious with Yoki. While she understands the importance of disguises, she makes it very clear that mutilating someone's wings in such a barbaric manner is unacceptable. Seeing Cecilia genuinely angry with him for the first time sends Yoki into a panic, and he apologizes repeatedly and desperately until her mood softens. Among the demons, Duke the Dullahan proves to be the most composed. He joins Yoki and Cecilia for tea and recounts his past. He explains that he was once a ruthless demon until he was assigned to eliminate Yoki. At the Demon Palace, Yoki was infamous for isolating himself and disregarding orders, which eventually led one superior to hire Duke to knock some sense into him. The attempt failed spectacularly. Yoki defeated Duke with ease, and from that moment on, Duke acknowledged him as his captain and pledged unwavering loyalty. At some point, they realize that Happiness and Sheik are nowhere to be found. A search begins. Sheik is discovered first, inexplicably asleep in the lap of Cecilia's mother like a contented pet. Cecilia's mother cheerfully explains that she encountered the boy running through the garden, found him adorable, and decided to indulge him. He eventually tired himself out and fell asleep. Yoki cautiously asks whether a girl had been with the boy. Cecilia's mother confirms this and mentions that Sophia brought her into the mansion. Alarmed, Yoki and Cecilia rush inside and discover Happiness dressed as a maid. Sophia apologizes profusely, explaining that she mistook Happiness for an applicant filling a newly open maid position. Once the misunderstanding is resolved, Sophia tells Happiness she is free to leave. To everyone's surprise, Happiness refuses. She announces that she wants to work as a maid and see where life takes her. Sophia agrees and escorts her to her new room. As the day ends, Cecilia's mother privately approaches Yoki and confides that Cecilia has been exhausted from work lately. She suggests that Yoki take her out the next day for a change of pace. Yoki, already hopelessly in love, agrees immediately, perhaps a bit too enthusiastically. The following day, Yoki waits at their meeting spot, quietly marveling at the fact that he is about to go on what is essentially a parent-approved date. One could argue that he impressed Cecilia's mother before he managed to impress Cecilia herself. When Cecilia arrives, Yoki is stunned. Instead of her usual attire, she wears a beautiful white dress paired with glasses, serving both as fashion and disguise. Fame, it seems, has its inconveniences. Their date begins at a cake shop, followed by a brief stop to Animerecap that instantly captures Cecilia's attention. They then go clothes shopping, during which Yoki spends most of his time blushing uncontrollably as he watches Cecilia try on different outfits, wondering how one person can be that mesmerizing. As with all good things, the date is interrupted. They run into Yuga and Mikana. Yuga, who is also deeply infatuated with Cecilia, finds her immediately captivating. He stares at Yoki, sensing that he has met him before, completely unaware that the demon he was never able to defeat is standing right in front of him. The group enters an accessory shop together. Yoki selects a modest, cute necklace for Cecilia, which she genuinely loves. Attempting to outdo him, Yuga chooses the most expensive necklace in the store. Rather than being impressed, Cecilia is overwhelmed by its sheer size. In his haste to have her try it on, Yuga accidentally ruins her disguise, drawing public attention. Fans swarm the heroes, leaving Yoki separated and forgotten in the chaos. While wandering alone, Yoki encounters Raven, the swordsman hero, who is also being mobbed by admirers. Yoki helps him escape, and the two strike up a conversation. Yoki notices that Raven has a surprisingly feminine voice. Raven admits this is his greatest insecurity, and that people often mock him for it. Yoki, however, accepts him without judgment, remarking that everyone has something they hide or feel ashamed of. Privately, he reflects that in his case, it happens to be the fact that he is a demon in disguise. After parting ways with Raven, Yoki eventually reunites with Cecilia. Together, they conclude the day by helping a lost child find his mother. A quiet, simple ending to an eventful day that proves even demons in disguise can stumble into something resembling normal happiness. The following day, Yoki is shaken when his mother informs him that Cecilia fainted after spending the previous day with him. He immediately assumes full responsibility, blaming himself for failing to maintain her disguise and allowing the situation to spiral out of control. Cecilia's mother, however, firmly dismisses his self-reproach. She makes it clear that the real culprit is the hero Yuga, whose carelessness exposed Cecilia to the public. As a result, Cecilia was overwhelmed by crowds, pushed beyond her limits, and left physically exhausted. Matters only worsen when Yuga has the audacity to visit the mansion afterward, claiming he wants to take care of Cecilia despite having caused chaos in the first place. Her mother finds his behavior entirely unacceptable and promptly orders Sophia to escort him out of the mansion without ceremony. Afterward, she allows Yoki to visit Cecilia. He approaches her bedside filled with guilt, feeling deeply ashamed. In reported reflection, he admits that he believed he failed to make her day enjoyable and apologizes sincerely for disappointing her. At this point, Cecilia begins to open up to him, adopting a noticeably tsundere attitude. She tells him that while it is indeed his fault that things went wrong, that only means he now has to make up for it. She insists that he take her out again, and demands that this time the day goes smoothly from start to finish. This declaration sends Yoki's heart soaring. In his mind, it is nothing less than official permission for a second date, granted directly by Cecilia herself. Overwhelmed with enthusiasm, he eagerly agrees and vows to be far more careful and responsible next time. Leaving the mansion in an unusually pleasant mood, Yoki encounters Raven once again. Despite having only recently become friends, Raven decides to confide in him. He admits that there is someone he loves deeply, but that he struggles to gather the courage to confess his feelings. Yoki responds by reminding Raven of who he is, tall, handsome, and one of the swordsmen who defeated the Demon King. In Yoki's view, a man like that has nothing to fear. These words give Raven the confidence he needs, and he declares his intention to face his feelings head-on before heading off. Yoki watches as Raven walks straight towards Cecilia's mansion. In an instant, Yoki's cheerful mood collapses. His optimism plummets into despair as a terrifying realization dawns on him. His worst fear appears to have come true. Raven, too, has fallen for Cecilia and is now on his way to confess to her. The third episode opens with Raven making his way towards Cecilia's residence, while the realization slowly and cruelly dawns on Yoki that the girl Raven intends to confess to is none other than Cecilia herself. Raven even remarks that the girl he likes did not laugh at his voice the first time she heard it, a detail that perfectly matches Cecilia's gentle and kind nature. Yoki spirals into a panic unlike anything he has ever experienced before. His mind races with the terrifying possibility that Raven might confess, and that Cecilia might accept his feelings. After all, the two of them had once been members of the same party. Yoki's imagination runs wild, painting vivid scenes of shared battles and quiet moments. He envisions countless occasions where Cecilia must have been in danger while fighting demons, only for Raven to arrive just in time to save her, their bond deepening little by little with each encounter. His anxiety reaches its peak, until Raven suddenly returns from Cecilia's mansion, utterly dejected and muttering that he should just die. The dramatic despair both intrigues and strangely reassures Yoki. Clearly, something had gone terribly wrong. However, Raven is in no state to explain himself, refusing to speak about what happened. Determined to uncover the truth, Yoki decides to return to the mansion and speak to Cecilia directly about her conversation with Raven. Instead, he is met at the door by Sophia, who has sealed the entrance shut with heavy chains. Chains strong enough, she claims, to restrain even the Demon King himself. In a firm and unyielding tone, Sophia explains that Cecilia desperately needs rest and cannot be disturbed by any form of social interaction for the time being. Summoning his courage, Yoki brings up Raven's recent visit. To his shock, Sophia responds that Raven had not come to see Cecilia at all. He had only asked to meet Happiness. The revelation hits Yoki like a thunderbolt. Could it be that the girl Raven wanted to confess to was Happiness instead? With this new information weighing heavily on his mind, Yoki seeks out Happiness herself. From their conversation, he finally learns the truth. Raven's confession had been met with a single, devastating word: impossible. Yoki understands that Raven is a fundamentally good person, even if he was once an enemy. Because of this, he makes a sincere effort to persuade his former teammate, Happiness, to reconsider Raven's confession. After speaking with her, it becomes painfully obvious to Yoki that Happiness does, in fact, harbor feelings for Raven. However, her shyness prevents her from acknowledging them openly, and she is far too timid to say yes to his confession. Armed with this new insight, Yoki gathers the remaining members of their former team to discuss Happiness's love life. Duke immediately objects to the idea of Happiness being romantically involved with a human. In his view, humans are largely untrustworthy, and he cannot imagine Happiness wanting anything to do with one. He reminds everyone that Happiness is a harpy, a race that humans have attempted to enslave for centuries due to their beauty and feathers. There is no guarantee, he argues, that Raven is any different from those who cause her suffering. Duke reasons that such experiences likely shaped Happiness from childhood, instilling a deep resentment toward humans. Sheik, however, disagrees. He argues that humans, like any other race, are capable of both good and evil. Raven, in his opinion, clearly belongs to the former category, having once been a member of the hero's party. The discussion ultimately ends without a firm conclusion, leaving Yoki no closer to a solution. Needing a distraction, Yoki heads to the Adventurers Guild to earn some quick money through easy quests. Upon arrival, he discovers that the receptionist who usually assigns his work is absent. Another receptionist informs him that Kramen has been injured and hospitalized. To Yoki's surprise, he also learns that Kramen is actually the vice president of the guild. Concerned, Yoki visits the hospital, bringing fruit to wish Kramen a swift recovery. Although Kramen is typically irritated by Yoki's presence at the guild, he is genuinely grateful for the visit. He then explains how he ended up hospitalized. Contrary to what one might expect, it was neither a monster nor a brawl with another adventurer that caused his injuries. It was his wife. Kramen reveals that he had attempted to buy the perfect necklace for their anniversary, but took so long choosing that the shop closed before he could decide. Worse still, he returned home late, leading his wife to believe he had forgotten the anniversary entirely. The misunderstanding resulted in severe consequences and a very thorough beating. Yoki offers to heal him with magic, but Kramen refuses. He explains that this is his chance to be doted on by his wife, and he has no intention of ruining it. Shortly afterward, Kramen's wife arrives, revealing herself to be none other than Sophia, the head maid of Cecilia's household. The revelation explains the severity of Kramen's injuries all too well. Sophia later pulls Yoki aside to thank him for visiting her husband. Witnessing this entire ordeal, Yoki comes to an important realization about the value of thoughtful gifts. Inspired, he sets out to find Raven, forming a plan that might help both himself and Raven impress the women they care about. Along the way, his thoughts drift, and he begins to fantasize about his own future, blushing at the possibilities. When Yoki finally reaches Raven's room, he finds him on the verge of emotional collapse, devastated by his first rejection. Raven recounts how he first met Happiness during a routine patrol. He had encountered 3 thugs harassing her and intervened out of duty, defeating one while the others fled after recognizing him as a hero. As he prepared to leave, Happiness grabbed his arm to thank him. In his surprise, Raven accidentally revealed his high-pitched voice and felt deeply embarrassed. Instead of mocking him, Happiness praised it, calling it beautiful. That moment, Raven admits, was when he fell in love with her. Listening carefully, Yoki rekindles hope within the broken warrior. He assures Raven that Happiness does like him, and that it is far too early to give up. According to Yoki, the best course of action is to give her a gift, something that could shift her feelings and open the door again. Encouraged, Raven regains his confidence, and together they head to an accessory shop. Yoki buys a present for Cecilia, while Raven carefully selects the perfect gift for Happiness. Just as they are about to leave, they run into Mikana, a notoriously blunt member of the hero's party. She is surprised to see the 2 men in a gift shop, prompting Yoki to hastily clarify that they are shopping for women they love, not for each other. Mikana is shocked to learn that Raven has a love interest and insists on hearing the entire story. Yoki immediately realizes his mistake. Knowing Raven would prefer to keep this private, Refusing to let them escape, Mikana drags them to a nearby cafe. Raven and Yoki attempt to deflect her questions by focusing on their food, but Mikana manages to coax Yoki into talking by promising to share information about Cecilia. Unable to resist, Yoki gives in. The conversation soon shifts to Mikana's own love life. She openly admits that she is deeply in love with the hero Yuga, who, unfortunately, remains fixated on Cecilia despite being rejected multiple times. Mikana explains that Cecilia dislikes Yuga's careless behavior around women, particularly his habit of barging into the girls' bath, despite clearly not being her type. Yuga stubbornly refuses to accept the truth. Mikana then recounts the final battle with the Demon King, revealing that their strategy involved leaving Cecilia alone with a demon they could not defeat. Yoki struggles to maintain a neutral expression, knowing that the demon in question was actually himself, something none of them realize. Yuga, Mikana adds, still blames her for influencing that decision, and their relationship has never been the same since. Feeling responsible for reopening old wounds, Yoki comforts Mikana, reminding her that her actions were motivated by concern for Yuga and the pressure placed upon him as a hero. With time running out, everyone depended on him to save the world. His words restore Mikana's spirits, and she leaves the cafe with renewed hope. Finally, Yoki and Raven make their way to Cecilia's home, where Raven intends to speak with Happiness once more. Duke intercepts them, behaving like an overprotective older brother and subjecting Raven to one final trial. Raven passes without issue and is allowed through, standing before Happiness. He presents her with a gift and asks if they can at least remain friends. Happiness accepts both the present and the proposal, bringing the long and turbulent day to a hopeful close.